Hi everybody, this is Julie Quinn. I'm making you guys a quick screencast-o-matic tutorial on course navigation and on the week 1 main writing assignment. Hopefully this will stay under 15 minutes, and if it doesn't, I may have to make 2 videos, but I know that we had a bit of a truncated week 1 because of the snowstorm that was kind of a snowstorm. But let's just go through this, and hopefully this will give you a little bit of background on what I'm looking for in this business writing class, in this first big assignment. And if you have questions after this video, please reach out and let me know. I am working from home today and tomorrow. Okay, so what I told your classmates in class, the students who came week 1, was that I think that the easiest way for you to sort of get through this course is to navigate via, so when you're on Leo, click on content and go week by week. This is going to introduce you to the pacing of the course and to what is assigned on any given week. And week 1 is the worst in advance, but what it does, and I apologize, but what it does is it creates a baseline from which we can sort of build on concepts and ideas for the next 8 weeks. Remember, you're taking an 8-week class. This is going to go much faster than normal, traditional 16-week semesters, and so we're going to speed through a lot of this, but bear in mind that some of these videos that were recorded by Professor Kavanaugh, those are chapters 4, 5, and 6, are only a couple of minutes long. So you could knock out these video reviews of these chapters in 20 minutes, okay? And that helps students. So instead of having to read 6 chapters of content, the idea is that I want you to read 1 and 2 and save chapter, and I posted this in an announcement, but save chapter 3 for next week. So read that over the weekend, skim it. Chapter 2 is the most important of the chapters for your first week's main assignment. So you can see here that at the beginning of each week, it will list sort of just a to-do list or a strategy of how to knock out the work this week. Obviously, we meet on Mondays, and let me go back to Course Home, because you'll see in here as well that I have a weekly schedule. So we meet on Mondays, and then I have a column that says prep due for Monday's meetings, and I'd originally listed chapters 1 through 3 with those asterisks that say under important notes. Do that later in the week because, of course, there's no reasonable requirement to have you read before first class, right? But let's save chapter 3 for next week, for March 20th, okay? So let me go back to where I was navigating. You'll tend to see I jump around a little bit, but back into week 1. Here we go. You'll notice that you've got these readings, and in addition in class we went over the sample Bill Hillman paper. This is an exact model of one student's interpretation of writing assignment 1, and if I was to grade this myself, this is a student that was not in my class. This was an online class, I believe. The student took this in 2014. Student definitely would get an A. It's not a perfect paper, but there's a lot going for it. So if you're thinking about writing assignment number 1, the communication inhibitors report, and you're looking at this is when you click on the link there, it's broken into 4 parts, and this talks about each of those parts. Hillman's paper is applying this paper to his or her writing experiences. I believe it's a him. Okay, so you can see that Hillman tackles emotional barriers, physical barriers, direction of communication, I believe. Okay, so each of these parts is a little bit, but when you add it up together, you get Hillman's sample paper, which ends up being a couple of pages long, 3 pages in single space. So what you have to do is part one provides some background in writing assignment number 1 about issues of communication in either your own workspace or in a community workspace. Say, for example, within your HOA, or you're on I just signed up my daughter for 8 and under softball. This is going to be very interesting, and it's part of Prince William Park Authority. I'm not 100% sure, but it's an all-volunteer organization. And so if you were a member of a volunteer organization, say like the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts, or the Kiwanis Club, or part of a leadership community with your church, you could use those instances for this assignment instead of a work environment if you're worried about clearance issues, or if you're just worried about, you just want to put work aside for the moment. That's perfectly fine with me, and this will work. So you'll see that the paper has 4 parts. Background to issues of communication in Hillman's workspace as an example. Hillman's definitions of the communication inhibitors that he is specifically highlighting. You do not have to choose these barriers. Choose other ones, or choose ones that apply to your situations, plural, right? Part 3, and by the way, in part 2, don't use your work situations as part of the definition. I want a definition that would work in a dictionary. Don't take the dictionary definition. I'll be looking for that, right? But I want your own definitions of these terms, because then I get to see how you apply it to the actual incidents, which is part 3. So you'll see the columns: communication, what happened in the communication, what was the inhibitor that you feel applies to the situation, and then where did it, the analysis is where did it break down. So you can see for number 1, Hillman said, when I arrived at work, my supervisor told me that he had some items for me to accomplish. Then he immediately listed the items for me. I realized that I needed to make a list, so I obtained a pen and paper. I had to ask my supervisor to repeat the jobs to ensure that I had a list of all jobs. The inhibitor was audience expectations. Hillman's analysis is, I expected my supervisor to just assign the usual 2 to 3 tasks that didn't require a list, and I was unprepared. As an audience, Hillman had an expectation of his supervisor that in this situation actually didn't match up, normally. And then, of course, there's another example of physical barriers, and one more of that, and one of emotional. So Hillman does 4 short examples. This situation, and what he's done is he's drilled down very specifically, and it's not a situation where the communication inhibitor is like a fireable offense. But what I like about it may seem really ridiculous and picky of a situation, but these are micro inhibitors. Think about microaggressions. These are micro inhibitors that happen that over time can break down a relationship between employees or between boss and employee. So when you add them all up together, you can say, if I could fix some of these minute inhibitors, you could actually make your own workspace a lot more productive, right? And pleasant. So going minute is fine. And if you want to choose a moderate situation that had multiple inhibitors, that's fine too. It's entirely up to you how you approach this, but this is the part 3 table. Then in part 4, it's an evaluation of you rate your workplace or that one particular group's environment. Okay, so you can see that in the actual assignment list, you've got the 4 parts, you've got the options of each of the different communication inhibitors, and this is where your reading of chapter 2 will be really helpful. It will give you background. And in addition to it, this assignment does say that if you do read reading material to draw upon this assignment, so as part of your homework for the week, as part of like the hybrid activities that you do, go to eReserves in Leo. I'll show you how to get there right now. So you go to, let's see, Leo, and you scroll up and you go to course resources, and then you go to eReserves, and you click on eReserves again because I always make you click twice. And in here are additional readings that will help you sort of clarify. So within here, you'll find some of those readings listed for assignment number 1. Let's see if we can see Physical Barriers in Communication from Pandita, The Barriers to Effective Communication by Jane. You do not have to read all of these, but if the concept is a little quirky, or you haven't taken, any real business-oriented classes before, and this is a class that blends communication and business, then hit on these readings. And then what you should do, if you still have questions on how to apply this to your workplace situation, is shoot me an email. Why don't we work together tomorrow? Why don't we set up a phone conference where you've done one of the readings or 2 of these readings plus chapter 2, and you've taken notes, and then you have some ideas about how you want to apply it to the workplace situation. Then we'll do a quick phone conference, 10, 15 minutes, where we get a chance to talk about how this applies. And especially because of the weather situation week 1, don't be stressed or frustrated if you feel out of the loop right now. Sometimes it's digging into the readings and thinking about the discussions that get you caught up very quickly. So in addition to this assignment that is due at the end of week 1, note, you have 2 discussions. One is called Standard Types of Business Writing, and taking a look at business letters and memos. More so, that happens much more often. Email communications, these snippets of short conversations that happen in the business space, more often than big academic essays, right? So that is more of an orientation of discussion. I'm going to hop in there today and tomorrow and participate and give everyone feedback. These are due tonight. Tonight's Thursday. Yes, these are due tonight by midnight. So make sure you knock those out. And then the next discussion is considering communication barriers inhibitors. This is a good baseline to help with your Sunday deliverable. Okay, this is not the deliverable, but this is sort of an orientation or discussion about some of these inhibitors that you may be able to use when you start to analyze problems in workplace communication for the big assignment later in the week. So in a nutshell, if you go week by week, start tackling a couple of these readings and videos. Don't do them all in a day. Spread it out over a couple of days, and you'll have a good idea for pacing and course expectations. Also use the schedule that I built. Print that out, keep it nearby, and knock everything off as you go. By the way, I didn't include all of this in that schedule. And I said, but hey, take a look at a sample paper, make sure you knock out your videos, manage it as best you can, and know that you can't tackle everything every week, but pace yourself. And reach out to me if you have any questions, okay? I look forward to seeing you on the discussions today and seeing your, maybe working with you tomorrow during a phone conference. And then, of course, your deliverable number 1 due Sunday. Take care.